the last time that I had a moment where I was like, shit, is it time to quit jujitsu or whatever? It was when I turned 30, bro. I turned 30 back in October. And I remember like coming up when I was like 22, and we had guys that were like 29 pushing 30. And I remember watching them push that. And I remember like the way they felt when I would train with them. And I was like, dude, that must be the cutoff. That must be like when it's downhill, Dude, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I've had to talk myself off the cliff 100 times since I turned 30, bro. It's been difficult.
Welcome to Forever White Belt. I'm your host, Adolfo Fronda. In this episode, I have a great conversation with Ryan Aitken, an amazing black belt at 10th Planet Atlanta, under friend of the show, Sean Applegate. Ryan is recently coming off of a string of victories, last of which was EBI. In this conversation, Ryan discusses his experience with different aspects of his training, his development in wrestling, as well as his evolving game and training methods. Ryan shares his experiences with yoga and weightlifting and how they have influenced his jiu-jitsu journey. Ryan discusses the importance of visualization in training and competition, the development of the kill instinct, and his thoughts on quitting jiu-jitsu. He also talks about the impact of injuries on his training and the need to take care of his body. He talks about his journey as a competitor, the importance of breathing and swimming in his training, and the concept of consolidation in jiu-jitsu. Ryan also shares his thoughts on the role of jiu-jitsu in building a strong community and identity. He expresses his desire to open a gym and inspire the younger generation through jiu-jitsu. Ryan's a very special grappler. At the zenith of his career, the media, in my opinion, tends to somehow overlook Ryan more than it should. And with that, I give you Ryan Aitken. Ryan, welcome to the show, man.
What's up, bro?
A friend of the show, Sean Applegate, who, in my opinion, is, I don't know, maybe top 5 coaches in the world.
Easy. Yeah, easy.
Just brilliant guy. You came upon my radar thanks to him and some other people, and I've been watching you develop for quite some time now, coming up through the ranks. Very interesting history here with Mr. Noguera as well.
Yeah, Leo.
A hero of mine. Sao Paulo Pass, just monster. Let's go back to the gi days, which people probably have no idea that you did this.
Yeah, it's funny. I would have thought that all my time spent on the IBJJF circuit and stuff would have like yielded something, in the end. I think I run into some old faces and stuff and people that remember me from those days and whatnot. So that's kind of cool, but it's not like I built these like deep connections through my competitive career in the gi that would end up like crossing over into no-gi. The only one that might come to mind is my time spent at my first IBJJF Worlds with Rafa Rosendo dos Santos in South Carolina at the Alliance over there, the Champions Center, I think. I met him through my first IBJJF Worlds, and we actually shared a hotel room together. And so he kind of had like a lasting, just this image of like what it's like to travel with, a Brazilian guy and compete out there, and then to be pursuing that yearly again, over and over again. So I guess that might be the only one that really comes to mind, because I'll be doing a seminar in June at his gym. So that's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. But dude, aside from that, man, I don't know if that IBJJF circuit really did so much for me,
That's I was going to ask you. I've heard you mention this before, and it's sort of to this effect: is the IBJJF a waste of time?
I feel like I would have been better served with the style of competitions that I'm doing nowadays, like ADCC and stuff. I would have been better served wrestling in high school. Like a lot of the guys in my first gym advised me to do. They were like, dude, go wrestle in high school, And then if I could have wrestled in college, that would have been great too, because when it comes to ADCC rule sets, like the wrestling is always going to help. And another thing is that competitive, and IBJJF gave me a ton of matches, but I would have still gotten 10 times more matches if I wrestled. I mean, I don't know. It was cool to kind of like understand, like get in there with the whole vibe of like the Brazilian jiu-jitsu vibe, going to the worlds and stuff like that, and going to the pans, getting high and sitting in the stands at the pans watching like the Mayal bros compete, or next thing you know they're sitting behind you like while you're watching like Marigali compete and stuff like that, you know. Those were some like epic moments, but really it was more of a fan thing, you know. I feel like it made me a bigger jiu-jitsu enthusiast rather than a better athlete, you know.
We see people like Tynan Marigali now making the jump from this IBJJF world to, you know, this other, let's just call it no-gi professional world now. Versus, is the IBJJF more the world of like an amateur and stuff versus, you mentioned professional? It seems like more of the professionals now are just going straight no-gi, straight to the other type of circuit.
The way that we do our amateur is usually going to be like the local new breeds, then the local nagas, and then like super fights, and then low level pro show, then mid level pro show, then high level pro show, you know. It's difficult to get the high volume of matches though, by doing this, because these shows that come locally on an amateur level only happen maybe 4, 5, 6 times a year. If you have the funding and the money to like travel around the country and compete at least once a month, I mean, you're already doubling your exposure. But then if you can also like do every other week or so, you know, again, that gets expensive as shit though. So that's the problem with IBJJF is I think the reason a lot of these guys do well when they cross over is just the sheer volume of matches against other guys that are competitive. And also if they're Brazilian, they're coming from the large pond in Brazil and they are the cream of the crop, and then they get the funding to come over here and they're destined to do well in jiu-jitsu because they don't have like distractions. They don't got to worry about taxes. They don't got to worry about insurance and stuff. They have a community already raising them up and trying to get them up there, you know. So I guess that's the difference is when you're competing like on the IBJJF circuit, you might be like an American that was like very enthusiastic about jiu-jitsu, might have done it since he was a teenager, and you go over there and fight, and you're fighting literally the best guys from Brazil that are making it out here. So, you're not just fighting the parallel version of you from Brazil. So that's where it's a little different.
I've heard you mention, I don't know, you were self-critical of your wrestling a few years ago. You were mentioning that it's something you wanted to work on. You had some training partners, some college, I believe, wrestlers to work with.
Yeah, we got George Carpenter from Penn State, who I think was just out there with Bo Nickel for his UFC fight. George has been destroying me in the room, and it makes me a way better wrestler every day, you know. And the crazy thing is, I just found out when I ran into one of his old teammates that while he might be like fighting at 155, I think, or 150, well, whatever the lightweight is for MMA, the guy used to wrestle at 120 or some shit like that. Like, this guy moves on me, bro.
It's amazing, man. So you're wrestling then. How you feeling about its development?
Much better.
Look good at ADCC.
Thank you. So the biggest thing was developing the body lock, and because that was going to cross over with my butterfly, my half butterfly and stuff. You know, I was always like moving into the head pinch and the body lock and stuff like that, double unders. So then I had to develop a wrestle up, and so then I was like going from grounded to standing all the time. Then that's just kind of reverse engineering wrestling. So now it's like, okay, well, how can I find these entries from standing, or can I find them from like, you know, just wrestling up, and now I'm in I'm wrestling, I already got an angle on the guy. And so that's the thing. I found that like by wrestling up, I could wrestle against better wrestlers, way better wrestlers, but because I'm already starting from a low angle coming up. And a lot of them are not going to engage very hard and try to hold you on the ground when they know that you're way better than them at jiu-jitsu. So that's kind of what's helped me develop my wrestling and fit that in with jiu-jitsu.
I remember hearing you mention too, is you were sort of self-critical about your head and arm choke. Now it looks phenomenal. I've seen you finishing people now.
Yeah, so the arm triangle from like mount, it was trash. When I did CJJ the first time, I think I had Hunter Colvin in one. I had Derek in one. The dude Derek was just pretending to choke, like pretending to cough, like
Just
he was
burning you out, trying to burn. Yeah, I see.
Yeah,
Really?
so it was funny because like I sucked at it back then, honestly. What made me better at it was I think I really started to focus on, okay, where are the actual checkpoints on this move for me? Everyone's going to have like a different experience. My shoulders are kind of trash sometimes, if not all the time. So it might hurt, to do the arm triangle from this angle, or if I don't make sure I have it like this. And then like, okay, well, why does my grip feel like it's getting too tired? What is going on here? Like, where's my gable grip supposed to be placed? And eventually I found that sweet spot, which is like lower on under their shoulder blade. And that allowed me to get my shoulder lower under their jaw. And then, I have all these checkpoints now. And when I can go get those and I can secure them, it's like, I know I got this on. And it's similar to the triangle now. It's like a triangle from on bottom, a triangle choke. It's like, when you cut this angle, and when you start stomping and curling, and you can get under their armpit to stay perpendicular with them. It's like, that is going to finish them. The arm triangle just became that for me. And then I know not to sell on it if I can't check these points off. It's really subtle though. Like you can't just study that on video, honestly.
You just got to work it, huh?
You really got to spend a lot of time on the arm triangle to get a good one. Otherwise, you can bank on guys just having fat shoulders, and it makes it really easy. Their fat shoulder will fill up the space anyways.
But that is a tough one. It seems like to finish with bad shoulders. I mean, we all have bad shoulders or a bad shoulder, right? So
Yeah.
It's like, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. Just got to push through it, eh?
No, you don't push through it. You got to get those checkpoints, Really focus in on those checkpoints with your shoulder placement under their jaw, with your hand placement on the lock, so that they can't just like bridge and break your hands apart. And so that they can't just like bridge, and next thing you know, like your hands are going too low, that now your shoulder's going high. It's like you got to find that sweet point.
How would you define your game in some way? I have a hard time pegging you. Like some people are counterpunchers, right? Some people are just offensively sort of orientated. You seem to be sort of all over the place for me. How did you develop? Were you one style initially and now you're this?
So I think coming up, I feel like when I was blue belt, I was very, very reactionary, right? It was like, I'll just lay there, and you're going to try to go, with a scoop grip or a double under, and I'm going to no arm triangle you. And that was like my whole jiu-jitsu experience was like, I'm going to let them try to wrestle me and stuff like that, and I'm going to just wrap around them. Dude, it wasn't like the blue belts that I train with today. When I was a blue belt back then, it was so reactionary. It was just I'm trying to defend myself and stuff like that, right? Then I did MMA for a little bit and got really athletic and more like headstrong and stuff like that. I watched a lot of Never Back Down when I was a kid, so like that was like pushing me into this like I gotta go redline in the gym every day to and freaking like it is do or die, and so I developed this whole like athletic thing. I started doing a lot of like Tabata training, and I did a lot of like strength and conditioning and stuff like that. Then as I transitioned out of MMA and into Jiu-Jitsu again, and I decided to go to Alliance and focus on Jiu-Jitsu because I was like, I want to be a better competitive athlete. I want to have a better mindset so that if I go back to MMA, I know what it's like to train with like world champions and stuff like that. I get to Alliance, and like the class of guys that had like won all those championships and were still pursuing it, they were kind of getting older and they were kind of just moving on with their lives. I didn't really realize that, but Alliance still had a lot of the guys that trained with those guys were still there. So I was still getting the sessions, and I was still getting a piece of that like this is what it feels like to train with world champions. Like I had Danny Donahue, who is kind of like he's always been kind of like the protege under Macahau, who was Jonathan Thomas, red hair. Yeah, that guy's very smart in the gi. So I had access to those guys, and I was then learning how to do more like gi oriented, like control, technique stuff. And so I guess I really started to emphasize more control there and understand, okay, I want to control guys. I get that. Okay. I want to look like Hodger Gracie when I compete. I get that now. Okay. And I really picked up the knee slide from all that because Lucas Lepre had just finished teaching there and he was moving on. And then I also had, I really developed my cauliflower ear training with Leo Noguera because his style was half guard, which came full circle for me because I veered away from half guard and just recently, over the last year or so, it became another big thing for me. But back then it was a lot of like over under passing. You know, if you're on bottom, you're playing deep half. If you're on top, you're over under passing going into half guard, you're trying to smash. And so there was a lot of like head pushing and just using your head to grind, which again is like very control oriented, very slow and just like melting through them. So that's kind of how I developed that. And then when I moved over to Sean's at 10th Planet, again, that was from gi to no gi. Sean really hones in on like emphasizes every little detail, every point, every control, every submission. There's a reason you're doing this grip. There's a reason you're looking this way. There's a reason your center point is like facing a certain direction. Like everything was so methodical when I switched over there. So that's why I feel like now too, and also because I've gotten older and I've trained with all these young guys that are like moving a million miles an hour. I feel like I've really, really zoned in on the control. Like I feel like matches might just be trying to move too fast and I just want to hold on to somebody because I'm so over analytical too. I just want to hold on to somebody and slowly move. So sometimes it makes me feel like I might need to put on some more weight and go up because these smaller guys they move too damn fast, dude. It's like slow down, bro. I don't want to be scrambling.
But you've gotten a lot bigger too.
Yeah, I saw my first like weight gain. I started weightlifting, like actually weightlifting, like squatting and deadlifting when I was like 22. And I think I really did that a lot until 27. And I watched my weight go from, well, I used to fight MMA at 170. So that means I would cut from 185. I watched my weight go from 185, 190, 195, 200 from just like lifting for like 5, 6 years, And then recently I've kind of like stepped away from the heavy lifting because I remember I was doing some squats. I was pushing like 330 on the back squat for like 4 reps or so. And I remember I was realizing that, okay, so I would use my friend's belt, which was like this fat leather belt, and I could move that weight like it was nothing. So I was like, yes, I'm gonna just get a nice belt, I'm gonna start moving weight. Well, I buy this $60 belt off Amazon from like Iron Bull or Iron Bullshit, whatever their fucking brand is, and I strap it on. And the first sets that I do, bro, my back flies out. Like the thing spasms. I didn't want to blame the belt right then. I looked at my tennis shoes in the video that I was filming of myself. From the side, you could see that my foot rocks when I step back. So obviously I'm somewhere's having to compensate for that instability. So then I decided, okay, I'm just gonna start squatting barefoot. So I started squatting barefoot, like no belt. I work my way back up to like 300, throw the belt on, boom, back spasm again, bro. So it's the belt. It's the belt. It's the shitty fake leather belt, whatever that was off Amazon. And ever since then, bro, I've just kind of like eased off of the weightlifting because that would scare the shit out of me because like I wouldn't like train hard for like 2 weeks after a spasm like that. And then I'd be scared of it happening again.
Yeah, I'm hearing about this from a lot of guys that a lot of professionals that are saying they're moving away from the traditional squat as well, and whether it's going to a hex or going lighter or something. I've heard you mention yoga a lot throughout the years. Are you still practicing a lot of yoga and meditation?
Yeah, so not as much as I used to. So the thing was, I was like so deep in it for like 2 years. I was going 3, 4 times a week, and they weren't like the biggest deal was that they weren't hot yoga classes. So I was not expending all this like sweat and having to rehydrate before jujitsu. And then when COVID happened, it shut down a lot of these awesome studios that were around Atlanta. That it was a chain, and you could use this like class pass at all their locations. So if you didn't like the teachers at this location on this day, you could go to the other one and see your teacher over there. Or if your teacher was nomadic like mine, you could try to like follow her around the city. And my teacher was a universal yoga instructor, which is like this new style that's more appealing to men, I think, because it's more like arm balances and whatnot. So I was getting really deep into it. I would listen to the same music when I'd go out and compete. I'd do a lot of like the lion's breath because I was really starting to understand how my flow state would come out in those yoga classes. And if I could like recreate that on the mats and do jujitsu like that, it even better. And so I was really reliant on that. And then COVID happens, shuts down that shit. My teacher's trying to like find little places to teach and still, and so I'm still like doing that as much as I can, which might have been like once or twice a week. But then I'm also really doing a lot on my own. And then COVID finally ends. I start trying to find these like yoga places to go to, and the only one I could find was like hot yoga. The predicament with that though, at this place called Ember, it's very like it's like a Bikram yoga studio. And so the problem with Bikram in my eyes is they want to crank it up to 97. They want to make you do back bends, not like all these back bends. And you might do like a third of the arm balances that we were doing in my prior classes. But it was just like universal is what my body needs. And the problem is, it's very, very hard to find like a studio with universal instructors. They're coming up. They're few and far in between. What I like is that it's room temperature, and they do like a lot of upper body stuff. In fact, they do a lot of shoulder mobility stuff. If you look at Universal Yoga, is taught by this guy named Andre Lapa, and they got videos of him doing like handstands and stuff on top of a mountain. It's pretty dope. He'll do all these crazy weird shoulder mobility things that you don't see in any other style. Most of these styles that I've seen, it's like been reiterations of like Iyengar and Bikram. Iyengar is not bad. Iyengar is pretty cool. They do a lot of like standing balances and on your legs, and you hold a pose for like 5 minutes. So really teaches you that those isometric holds. But Bikram, dude, Bikram is just blah. The only reason you're losing weight in that class is because they're literally killing you slowly with the hot. You can't sweat 6 pounds out multiple times a day. You can only do that like once, maybe twice. But if you're trying to train jujitsu, you're going to do that in a jujitsu session anyways. So all that hot yoga is doing is taking away from your jujitsu. So I've had to find the balance between yoga and jujitsu. If I was going to go to a hot yoga place, or I find the universal instructors, which luckily there's one at Lifetime, but it's so hard to get into her class. You got to book it like a week out on the day that it opens, and you're probably going to be on a wait list after 30 people anyways. It's really difficult, man. People love the universal stuff right now.
Now, you mentioned getting into flow state, and I've heard you mention before, like you kind of touched on the topic of visualization prior to even training and, of course, competition. And I've heard some other professionals talk to me about this as well. Where does it fall into your routine of everything? And, it touches obviously on the mental state as well. And I've heard you mention before, fighting yourself versus fighting the other person, which I found to be a very interesting quote.
When it comes to like flow state before like classes and stuff like that, I found that from yoga, my teacher used to always say, set your intention. Your intention could be that day, oh, well, I need to, I want to get better at handstands. Oh, I need to focus on breathing in every position. Stop holding my breath. I need to really focus on getting more flexible today, so let's spend more time. Let's really push the flexible stuff. So the same thing can be applied in jiu-jitsu. Right now, for example, I know that my close guard was pretty lackluster at the ADCC trials. So I know, okay, when I go into to do a session today, I want to make sure I'm getting a few live reps on the closed guard when I roll. Okay. Now, who in this room is going to be perfect for these live reps of the closed guard? Okay, probably these bigger, slower guys. And then I get to like break it down, you know? So like what issues am I going to run into with the bigger, slower guys that's different than the smaller guys that are faster, and how can I enter on them? You know, things like that. And so by setting that intention of I want to focus on the closed guard, I can troubleshoot throughout the day. And then afterwards, I can try to like absorb that. Okay, well, what did I do wrong? What are the issues I ran into? And fortunately, because I have an incredible coach, I can walk up to Sean and be like, hey, what should I do when I'm here? This guy keeps doing this move and I want to do this. And that way I can see that I'm getting better. And it's not just me coming in mindlessly throwing my body at the wall, just going into the meat grinder like I used to. So that the meat grinder is the thing that you have to avoid the longer you spend your time in jiu-jitsu, because for some reason our brains just want to start dumbing everything down and making it just blurring it. It wants to just blur it and gray it all out. It doesn't want to keep everything so vibrant, you know? So we have to use our brain to like to try to set intentions and try to like really find the finer details, you know, in what we're doing. Otherwise, you know, we're doing it for nothing. And
Where do you feel your A game is at right now?
definitely back mount. I know that's easy to say. Who's not good at back mount? Believe it or not, a lot of people suck at back mount. I'm still having to develop my rear naked choke. It's like the smallest little angles will throw my rear naked choke off. But then suddenly I'm finding, oh, shit, like what I used to not be good at with the rear naked choke, I can drive them this way. And I just pulled that shit off at the ADCC trials. And that was a huge W for me. That battle wasn't against that guy. That battle wasn't for the crowd or against naysayers. That battle was against myself. That was, I couldn't do this choke last time on this guy. Now I'm doing this choke on this guy. I've made an improvement here. That goes into the battle being against yourself thing that you mentioned earlier.
I've heard you mentioned Eddie Cummings a few times. I've had the pleasure of talking to Junior Casio and John Calistine, right? Who've trained with him. And I feel like I should write a book on this guy now. And your coach, Sean, has spoke about Eddie in such high regards. And I've heard you mention him too. Can you expand like your overall thoughts on Eddie and his impact on you, your thoughts on him and the influence he left on the art?
His influence on me particularly has been pretty indirect. It's been through Sean. I know how much he's influenced like Sean's game. Sean was a huge leg locker in the beginning, but what's been incredible about Sean is while he was like a great leg locker and stuff, he's taken what made those leg locks so good, maybe what he's like what he learned from like watching Eddie Cummings or what he learned from watching all these guys and really learning how to hone it in his gym where he had no coach to teach him and where he had to teach these young hungry kids, and then he applied it to every other position in jiu-jitsu, and now he's got this universal style that works everywhere in jiu-jitsu. And so as far as Eddie Cummings go, I bought his DVD years ago when I first started trying to get into leg locks, and it was that one I think about like the saddle and stuff. He was on this Jiu-Jitsu or something. I think that was it. Yeah, I remember like kind of watching that guy. That guy could just like catch anybody in these leg locks before anybody really knew what those positions were, you know. He was definitely a pioneer in that sense. And then to see that he moves on to doing like engineering, I believe he's like an engineer or something now.
Yeah, I think it's in finance. Yeah, analytics.
That just tells you that that's where that guy's brain was just in general when it came to jiu-jitsu, you know? So I would say that that guy probably had like the most shadowy hand in all the land on jiu-jitsu, you know? Nobody knew that this guy was going to cause this massive wave in jiu-jitsu, but I think he did. He definitely had a big influence on Gordon and Gary Tonin, so I can't see how people could just not mention his name when it comes to the way modern jiu-jitsu is now.
You mentioned the rear naked choke and some other things where you're seeing these opportunities and you're finishing, you're going for them. Let's talk about the development of that.
Yeah, so I guess it's just the execution. You have all this pent up energy, right? When you're moving from the standing position to the ground, you're trying to pass the guard. There's all of this energy and worry and all this shit that's like building up. And then that climax is when you finally get on that guy's back and you can he's like fighting to get that hand down. He's got your thumb, you strip the thumb line free, and then you're finally like there. I guess that's the kill instinct right there, bro, is when it's you're about to execute the final move, and you got to see it through. Can't just let it slip. That's what's cool about jiu-jitsu is like, especially competing in jiu-jitsu, it teaches you to like seize the moment. It would suck if your finishing mechanics are trash and you spend all that time throughout the entire fight to get to this position and you have the guy in the submission and everyone in the crowd thinks it's going to work and it doesn't work. Execution, man.
Can you tell me of a time you wanted to quit and why?
Yeah, man. I can think of a couple times, especially when I was like getting into MMA and I was learning how to do the boxing and the Muay Thai. Then I realized I'm like, oh, this makes more sense to me because this feels more like martial art, this feels more raw. This feels more like where it's kill or be killed. That was cool for a little while, and getting back into jiu-jitsu was actually really hard after that. So the way my MMA career worked was it was like I was 3-0, and then I had the first title fight against a guy that was 6-2. Jeremy Holloway, who ended up fighting Michael Venom Page in Bellator. And dude, like I had him in a triangle at the end of round 1, but then after that, it was 4 rounds of me just taking the shittiest shots, trying to close the distance, and then getting uppercutted and getting just beat the shit out of, bro. Like I couldn't take him down and I couldn't close the distance. So it was just like he got to just get stood up, and he knew that. He knew all he had to train for in MMA was I just got to survive, on the ground, not get submitted, and then we're going to stand back up, and then I'm just going to stalk him and punch him in the face. And that was rough. I probably had a lot of CTE after that, some minor concussions. And then after that, I was like, okay, well, it makes no sense to lose in MMA. I'm going to only fight MMA again if I'm with the most methodical team that just does not lose. Like these guys just won't lose. Unfortunately, in Atlanta, I don't think there's some like unbeatable team in Atlanta. If you want to be in an unbeatable team, I mean, don't you need to like go to like maybe Coconut Creek? So I was just like, I'm just going to focus on jiu-jitsu. I'm going to go back to jiu-jitsu, focus on that. And if one day down the line, if I do really well and they want to recruit me to come like train at an MMA gym with them, then maybe I'll find an easy entry back into MMA and I'll be with like the people that I'm not going to get random concussions with and pointless concussions. And I'm not going to be sent out there to just lose a fight. I don't know, man. Some people don't really care about the losing and stuff, but in MMA, I think that an L is a big, big deal. Transitioning that to jiu-jitsu, L isn't really that much of a big deal, but for some reason, it's always felt like a huge deal to me. Like for some reason, I like a lot of my fights, I end up fighting to not lose and not just fighting to execute, like I was saying before, that's what you should be fighting for if you want to be fun to watch in jiu-jitsu. And if you just want to like look back on your career and feel proud of it, it's that killer instinct. But as far as like quitting jiu-jitsu, man, I think when I ran into that when I wanted to focus on MMA for a while, and then I had no respect for jiu-jitsu guys for a little bit. And then I think COVID was a moment for me to like face it and be like, Jesus, what the fuck? Like, what am I supposed to do? How is there going to be a professional jiu-jitsu circuit if the world's ending? So I was like, what the hell am I going to do now? And that was when I was like, well, there needs to be a hard transition. The hard transition will be gi to no gi. Reason I figured that was I likened that the gi and the no gi thing to my dad was a whitewater boater. He was a big deal in the whitewater boating community. He would go do like the gully race and go to all these festivals. He would take us to these festivals when I was a kid, and he would like sell the DVDs. He was kind of like the BJJ Fanatics of the whitewater video community. Yeah, he owned whitewatervideo.com. He was a canoeer though, so he would be in an open boat. And open boating was like the gi, and kayaking was like no gi, because kayaking was starting to emerge at the mid of my dad's boating career. And my dad was like, he was getting like second place on the goalie. He was pushing it. He was always right there. He wanted to raise me and my brother, and he needed to make money. So he was running an internet service provider company as well, too. And so he couldn't train as much as like some of these other boaters. Instead, what he would do is he would take his like video camera on the river and he would film a lot of these guys. If guys were like getting stuffed under a rock, he would be like setting up ropes and throwing ropes out to try to like save these people's lives and stuff like that. He became like a big, good guy to have on the river with everybody, whenever they would all go boating and stuff. But there was always this divide between canoers and kayakers. Not like they weren't friends, not like they would fight and stuff, but it was always my dad and all the open boaters would call the kayakers butt boaters. And then the kayakers would say that the open boaters were just like old and they're going out of style and they're slow, they can't do the flips. I saw this transition similar during COVID with Jiu Jitsu, that being the gi and the no gi, and the no gi rising. And I saw the difference between that was similar to like the open boating, the canoeing dying, and the kayaking rising. And I remember my dad had this view like fuck the kayaks, we're not gonna get in there, we're not gonna attach it to our butts, When this happened in COVID and I saw, my dad didn't win everything when he didn't switch, and I was just like, I'm going to switch. Fuck this. I'm going to do it completely different. I'm not going to die on this hill. Funny thing was, there's different factors, obviously. I had Sean Applegate 30 minutes from me at the time. I was like, I'm going to go train over there. It's different from boating in that sense. You have a coach, but that was at the moment, that was what like inspired me to make that transition, not quit jujitsu and just make a hard cut. So I abandoned the gi, stopped having those days where I slug 30 pounds of wet cloth into the washing machine. And now it's just like 5 pounds of wet cloth material into the washing machine. And I have a trash bag full of gis sitting in some closet at my parents' house or something. I don't touch them anymore, So now it's just hard no gi. And then I think the other time, that's the last final time that I had a moment where I was like, shit, is it time to quit jujitsu or whatever? It was when I turned 30, bro. I turned 30 back in October, and I remember like coming up when I was like 22, and we had guys that were like 29 pushing 30, and I remember watching them like push that, and I remember like the way they felt when I would train with them, and I was like, dude, that must be the cutoff. That must be like when it's downhill. Dude, I'm not gonna lie, like I've had to talk myself off the cliff 100 times since I turned 30, bro. It's been difficult.
That's so crazy because you look like you're at your peak, man. When I see you, ADCC and stuff, man, you look so good.
I appreciate that.
This guy is firing on all cylinders right now. It's amazing.
Well, I'm kind of the cause of my own demise in that aspect, because like my body is obviously dealing with 14 years of jiu-jitsu exposure. And so the thing is, I used to be so good about prior to COVID. I had so many good rituals. Like I was going to this CrossFit class. I was going to these yoga classes all the time. I had really good habits. I was eating so healthy and stuff. When the COVID happened, and then I was like, I had this massive change, get into no-gi, and then I'm trained really hard for like a year. Then it was like competing nonstop, once, twice a month sometimes. It's like I didn't have time to develop these healthy habits again. Next thing you know, my shoulder feels like it's slowly falling off again. My elbows hurt chronically. It's like really the biggest thing is that for me to continue to compete, I have to just focus. Like I have to focus on keeping my body healthy. I have to be going to Lifetime and swimming. I have to be doing this yoga stuff like it's a lifestyle every day. I can't like go in there, train with these 22-year-olds and act like my body's just going to warm up like that, just like theirs, it's not. And I just have to accept reality, and I have to focus on the small things that make my body feel like it's warm and ready to go for every session. And otherwise, yeah, I'm just going to be in the meat grinder still, or I have to make cutbacks. You have to treat your body right. You have to keep it well oiled. You have to maintain it just like a car. That's been the biggest thing for me. Like now that I'm 30, that's going to keep me off that ledge and keep me from quitting jiu-jitsu.
Have you suffered any sort of catastrophic or harsh injuries in terms like your MCLs, ACLs, anything like that?
No, dude, like before the first CJJ I did, I had a pretty bad rib pop. It was so weird. I don't know what happened. I like leg lock Fedor, and somehow the way he turned or something, like some shit happened in my rib. I had like 3 weeks to recover for the actual CJJ that I ended up winning. And so I just threw the kitchen sink at it. I was desperate. I was going to like this lady that was like rubbing ultrasound on it like I had a baby in my fucking river. I was getting like these massages. I was doing yoga, and then another thing was I was injecting BPC peptide right into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So I'm doing that for my knee now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I genuinely think that stuff works. Some people don't think so, but I think when it comes to like minor injuries and stuff like that, but it's like that rib pop. Kainan Duarte tore my right shoulder when I was a purple belt and we were fighting. He was doing the snap down, and it was funny. I tore my right rotator cuff the same way when I was training at Alliance. And it's because I'm telling you, dude, this whole thing where you grab the collar and you drop down for a single leg, it's a dumb idea. Okay. I'm going to tell everybody. It's a dumb idea. Okay. I don't know if somebody's forgetting to teach a specific detail about like maybe your elbow needs to be closed in or something all the way, but that's impossible. How does your elbow stay closed in when you drop down for the body doesn't work like that. Like your elbow's not going to stay closed in. So I don't know, man, but like grab the collar, drop for the single leg. Here's the problem. If the guy steps his leg back and you can't get the single leg and they start violently slapping you down like this, then you're holding onto this collar while your shoulder is just getting mangled. The thing is, it popped the same way twice. I think it's a bad technique, if you want me to be honest. It's the shitty judo wrestling. It's not judo. It's just in like street fight with clothes on, honestly. Like the way a lot of those techniques were like formed on the feet with the gi and stuff. Like I'm telling you, that's not a good grip, bro. Not if somebody can just shake you like that and tear your rotator cuff. I know I'm not the only person that's had that issue. I know somebody out there has gotten their rotator cuff torn the exact same way.
So your shoulder's been through the grinder, brutal, man.
Yeah, no surgery though. I mean, yoga's been what's held it together, honestly, yoga and swimming. I did have a bad knee pop my first MMA fight with Quentin Rosenzweig. I won the decision there, but Quentin fucking popped my leg so bad. That's the thing about MMA fights is like some people it's just like to the death, like break everything, like fuck it. Now I'm gonna be honest, that's probably not how I'd feel nowadays, but back then that's how I felt every day, you know. It was crazy. So that was a bad pop. Yeah, that was like a month-long recovery.
Can you talk about this swimming protocol? Or what are you doing? What's your swimming routine?
Okay, so I'm no Michael Phelps, but I feel like swimming in general has been incredible for my breathing because, like, let's say I got to do one length of the pool with my head under the water. That means I have to do like a bunch of deep inhales and exhales to try to push all that carbon dioxide or whatever out of my system and then get a deep breath in and then go for that length. And you'll get this anxiety, like I want to pull my head up out of the water, but you just tell yourself, I will lose this match tomorrow if I do stop. So I play this game. I will win this match tomorrow if I keep my head under the water. You learn to deal with this anxiety and you just go. And like, you know, you might have like your lungs are burning and they're doing this thing where they want to gulp right here. You can like swallow that need to breathe. You can kind of swallow it away and tuck it away. Sometimes it's really interesting. But the thing is, like, when you do this stuff, it's like when you can finally breathe, it's like that anxiety's gone. You just feel bliss. You feel good and your breath feels so good. And you definitely feel like it's easier to get into the flow state when you go to jiu-jitsu after swimming a couple laps, you know? So swimming's been good for my shoulders. It allows me to do the front, you know, when I do the front crawl, It's been pretty good on my shoulders. And then I'll go back. I'll do like bicycle kicks back on my back, and that's been good for my knees. It gets your quads really pumped up and everything, and stabilizes everything, especially your ankles too. And you can just do these bicycle kicks on your way back. I probably look weird as shit doing it because it's not very orthodox, but all I'm doing is like they have videos of like basketball players post knee surgery just doing bicycle kicks like stationary on the side of a pool. I just do the length of the pool with bicycle kicks. So it's not any different from that. I mean, it's just I'm moving, while I do it.
It's interesting. I was talking to Kyle Bayman. He does a lot of the pull work just for cardio. He's like doing sprinting type of stuff.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it sounds like, it's interesting that you talk about breathing. You're like the second person, Josh Janis, another black belt, heavy on the breathing, yourself.
Yeah, when it comes to competitions, I notice that there's just a different type of animal when you're fighting somebody that's you notice is breathing and you're not breathing. That's been funny. Like Clay Mayfield is somebody that comes to mind. When I fought him in IBJJF, I remember this distinct moment where I was like trying to do a move. And then he counters, and then he's trying to do a move, and I noticed the entire time he's doing it, he's breathing, and I'm like, I'm not breathing. What the So I started breathing and, I ended up winning. I genuinely think that had I not started focusing on my breath too, that match, he'd probably beat me. It just makes more sense because he's more focused on the performance and stuff like that, and I'm obviously not if I'm not breathing.
What comes to mind when you think of aha moments in terms of jiu-jitsu or moments?
Sean has this concept for consolidation, right? It's something that I can never really put my finger on throughout my career, but it was like everything I've ever do in my life, I want to make sure that they all complement each other. There's a reason, there's a rhyme and reason. It fits in the puzzle, and that would be consolidation. Sean applies that through jiu-jitsu. So like every position, every angle he's getting in this particular move and this system he's developing, it's all consolidating. He's constantly trying to consolidate and make it all work tighter together, and also have broad concepts that work universally together. It's the concept of consolidation that I genuinely think has been the aha moment and changed everything for me in my life. Everything I try to focus on consolidation because it makes it all more efficient. That way I'm not just like straying from the path.
Now, I like to talk about this other topic too, is the topic of dogma. What are you seeing that things that don't work as well, perhaps, as they used to in jiu-jitsu?
De La Riva, reverse De La Riva easily come to mind because they don't really take into consideration consolidation, right? They do in the gi, maybe, because in De La Riva you could like get a grip on a sleeve that ties around their leg too. Then you have like one grip consolidating because it's taking care of a control and it's tying up two of this guy's limbs, so I get that. In no-gi it doesn't make sense because you can't really find a grip like that. You're tying yourself up around their leg in De La Riva and you're giving them inside position. So the top player is actually consolidating because if you have inside position as a top player, then it's like you're spreading their body apart. Like their body is having to move away, and in limbs, as the limbs move away from my body and from my center mass, they get weaker the farther they go away from it. So inherently, De La Riva is a problem as far as consolidation goes. I think. And then reverse De La Riva, same similar thing. It's like I understand in the gi it makes sense, but in no gi it doesn't make sense. Again, you're giving them inside position. In fact, you're almost giving them half guard. The only thing that stops them from going to half guard is like a knee shield, or they high leg. But you're also making it easier for them to get your leg and attack your leg. And then reverse De La Riva players usually want to move underneath the guy and go behind them, like Kiss of the Dragon. That was actually my favorite entry when I first moved to no-gi because I did it in the gi all the time. But I was doing it on scrubs, like brown belt scrubs. Kiss of the Dragon, I don't think I see it at all on like ADCC or wherever. And that's because all you got to do to stop it is one heavy crossface. So then they can't move underneath you. So it depends who's preaching this dogma, right? Like, so Some people just hear it. "Oh, we don't do this, we don't do that." They don't know the because. But there are coaches out there that know why we don't fucking do this, and they'll tell you why. And you can sit there. Good luck to you if you want to sit there and argue with this coach for hours on why and feel dumb as shit the whole time trying to like make your point as to why this move from this DVD should work and why it's just not consolidating.
What makes a great jiu-jitsu student?
What makes a great jiu-jitsu student is always going to be somebody that wants to absorb like a sponge and don't even question the coach, but have questions after every roll. And the thing is, like, you gotta, if you're with the right coach, you can just put all your faith in what they're gonna say is the right thing. What might make a great jiu-jitsu student then is if you feel like you're not getting the right answers and you try to go seek out from another coach that will give you the right answers, then I think that that still makes you a great jiu-jitsu student as well. In respect to jiu-jitsu and not respect to marketing tactics and being a good business customer. I think that that's important too. So also being willing to do what it takes to make those major changes. You know, obviously funding, job changes, things like that might be necessary for you to pursue this dream that you have as a jiu-jitsu student. If that's not within like your capabilities though, it may be because you're a great jiu-jitsu student but you don't care about being a great jiu-jitsu competitor, then that's fine too. Just you're gonna have to do research online too if you feel like you're hitting that wall, you know. But the universal thing is always going to be to have an open mind, always have an open mind, and always look for those universal concepts that are taught by the best people, and try to see how they can be applied in you know everything going on in the jiu-jitsu world, like even the most popular moves that are happening right now, right?
You know, you mentioned you're in your 30s now. When you look at the next chapter of your life or the next few chapters of your life, I heard you mention MMA as a possibility thing. What I don't hear is teaching, opening an academy, and these kind of typical routes that you would hear. Is this just not of interest of you, or do you have other goals?
No, I want to open a gym and I want to inspire the younger generation to take the same path that I took, to use jujitsu as like their tool to see in their lens to see the world. Because the thing is like, and it's about like identity. The world's really weird where it can get so confusing that if you don't have an anchor to hold on to, you don't have people in a community that you hang out with, you might not know who you are, you know? Like there was a saying this guy used to say at Alliance, he'd say, "How does a lion know he's a lion?" Because he looks around himself and all he sees are other lions. He doesn't have a mirror in the wild. I kind of see how that works. And the problem is, it's like today's youth, let's look at their communities that they have options to be a part of. Sports coming up in high school. For some reason they might not do, you know, the high school sports. Maybe they'll do something else that might be like, you know, jujitsu. That would be ideal, obviously. Because other than that, what they have,
Or video games, man, just sitting at home, just gaming.
video games aren't too bad, you know? And so that's why I feel like opening a jiu-jitsu gym, it's actually contributing to the youth because it gives them an option to go to this community that teaches them to defend themselves, gives them the strong human interaction because you're touching people. You're getting choked, you're getting smothered, you're laughing, you're joking, you're getting a sense of style. People want to wear these certain clothes, and these things start to build an identity that'll give people an anchor. And it doesn't stop there because jiu-jitsu also gives you a way of thinking, something that I don't think these other communities really do, where jiu-jitsu teaches me to reverse engineer things. Jiu-jitsu teaches me to try to seek for consolidation and things. And those are things that I learned from jiu-jitsu, maybe because it's a science and stuff, but some of these other communities that the youth decides to latch on to, dude, drugs, sex, things like that, they don't get those scientific tools that allow them to solve real world problems that might be in front of them. It doesn't give them that fire to push through something. Oh, I know this is hard. I know I might lose this. Video games actually teach you that. Video games teach you you can lose, you can die, and then you can come back and try again. Some of these other communities are just not doing it, man. And so once I'm done with my competitive career, to like try to push jujitsu to like the youth and try to get more people in the sport, because I want it to serve them the way that it's served me.
Why don't we see any Ryan Aitken's instructionals and stuff?
Actually filmed the whole one. I filmed the whole one, dude. Another thing is like I'm not gonna lie. I don't think that there's really much money like out there sitting waiting to be spent. I feel like yeah, I could go try to market this and push it, and I can basically affiliate market with myself, on social media and try to push my DVD to you guys. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's what that might pull like 1,000, if that. I don't see the numbers.
Do you think the market is saturated or what?
I think the market's very saturated with this type of content on 2D like landscape format. I feel like a lot of people that would be buying my stuff, I feel like it'd be coming from a great place. They want to support and stuff. I don't think I'm like this fucking incredible new age instructor or anything yet. I'm still trying to figure out what works for me in competition. I would like to be on the new wave for like with the new generation of technology, if you want me to be honest, like whether that's with the headsets or stuff like that. I just don't know, bro. Like the landscape format is the portrait landscape, just 2D format in general. I don't know if I have anything groundbreaking to add to the table. And I feel like I'm just like out there trying to be a snake oil salesman and use tactics and stuff to try to drive people in there. And if they're coming to spend money to support me, that's really cool too. But we could do privates. Like you could come, I can actually work on something for your individual case, as far as privates go. So, I've been picking up some privates here and there, and that's, I always like that because I feel like I genuinely like help somebody with the problems that they're running into. The same thing that I look for in a coach as well.
What are you listening to now?
So, dude, honestly, I love this Australian band called Rufus Du Sol. They do like electronic stuff. It's like they had a music video that got very famous because it was so trippy. What they're doing is they're using a microscope, and I think it's like ink blots, or like they're like shooting like ink into water or something in slow-mo, and the microscope or the super heavy duty lens is like super macro. They try to make it looks so cinematic. So it's like the James Bond intros, with the ink and shit, like. So yeah, and then it's just like it's this slow panning while they're singing and stuff, and I remember watching that like years ago, and I just clung onto that one song, and then I walked out to CJJ. I was listening to that.
Yeah, that was your walkout, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well,
but a remix version or something?
In the CJJ, because it's on UFC Fight Pass, I don't think they're allowed to play like anybody's music. But I was listening to it on the headphones, and I would win a lot of these matches listening to Interbloom. When I did this tough bracket that got no publicity for 5K in South Carolina, where I fought Roosevelt, I fought Elder, I fought Brayler, and I fought Chris Wojcik. Tough bracket. I was listening to Interbloom before every match by Rufus Du Sol, and it was always like just putting me in the moment. And so yeah, dude, Rufus Du Sol has been something that I've really clung onto as a group. So it's been a lot of that stuff.
What have you been watching?
Dude, I literally got it on my TV right now. It's Fallout.
Dude, isn't that great? I love it. I ate it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you watch all of it already?
It's surprising. Yeah, I binged it.
Oh my God.
Surprisingly good.
Yeah, I started last night. I can't believe their budget, bro.
I can't believe Amazon put out something that.
Yeah, they easily got Halo level budget. Frankly, probably more because they got higher level actors, I think. I don't recognize all these people on Halo. I recognize people on Fallout for sure. In fact, the guy playing the ghoul, it's pretty interesting to me because in most movies he's like that B-level actor. Like he's like the bad guy that's like the side bad guy, he's never like a lead role, but in this he's finally a lead role and they're trying to send it home,
Well, Ryan, listeners, viewers want to get more information about you and everything you're up to. Where can they go? Where can they find it?
Yeah, just check me out, Ryan Aitken 10P, 10P on Instagram. That's where I post my most recent stuff.
Everyone, I'm your host, Adolfo Ferranda. Thanks so much for watching and listening again, spending your time with us. Consider being a VIP member. You get no ads, uncensored, and the whole thing. $1 a month. So, Ryan, thanks so much, bro, for your time. It was a real honor to have you on. I was really excited about getting you on the show. It's a big catch for us.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, brother. I appreciate you. Take care, man.
All right, everyone. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching and listening.